My name is Akiko Ito, and I am the Chief of the Secretariat for the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in the Division for Social Policy and Development at the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs. It is a great pleasure for me to participate in this new and extraordinary initiative by the Tokyo Development Learning Center of the World Bank. I've been asked to focus my short presentation today on a significant global benchmark in development called the General Assembly's High-Level Meeting on Disability and Development, which took place just a few months ago, and its potential impact on our continuing efforts toward development for all. Before speaking about this extraordinary event in the history of the United Nations, I would like to discuss its background. The UN has a long-standing commitment to the equality and full participation of persons with disabilities in society and development as both beneficiaries and agents. Indeed, this work is rooted in the goals of the United Nations Charter itself, which calls for economic and social progress and human rights for a peaceful and prosperous world. The international community has demonstrated its commitment to the advancement of the rights of persons with disabilities in society and development through its adoption of a series of international instruments. These instruments are the World Program of Action Concerning Disabled Persons in 1982, the Standard Rules on Equalization of Opportunities for Persons with Disabilities in 1993, and more recently, the unanimous adoption by the General Assembly of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in 2006. The Convention is both a human rights and development instrument. It was from the very beginning envisioned as an important tool for mainstreaming the disability perspective in development. However, in spite of the broad support for the goals and the objectives of the Convention, the same commitment has yet to be translated into action on the ground. More than 1 billion persons with disabilities around the world today, or 15% of the global population, live with disabilities. The majority of those people with disabilities are living in developing countries. In spite of this, disability has been inadequately included in international agreed development goals. For example, disability was not explicitly included in the Millennium Development Goals, MDGs. As a result, it has also been largely invisible in their implementation, as well as their monitoring and evaluation. The 2015 deadline for achievement of the MDGs is now approaching, and the international community right now is considering a future development framework known as the Post-2015 Development Framework. In the years since the MDGs were adopted, there has been growing recognition of the need for development to be fully disability inclusive. For example, in 2012, the interlinkages between disability and sustainable development were addressed in the outcome document of the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development, known as Rio+20. The General Assembly has also, in a series of its resolutions, found that without the inclusion and integration of the rights, well-being, and perspective of persons with disabilities in development efforts at all levels, development goals cannot be genuinely achieved. Largely as a result of this recognition, the General Assembly decided to convene the very first high-level meeting on disability and development on 23rd September 2013 at the level of heads of states and governments. The meeting directly addressed the invisibility of disability in the current development framework and called for renewed commitment to disability inclusion in a post-2015 development agenda. The meeting's outcome document enumerated a set of specific priorities to ensure that persons with disabilities assume their rightful role as agents and beneficiaries in all aspects of development. I would like to briefly discuss the high-level meeting itself as well as its preparatory process now. Preparatory process. When it comes to preparatory process, my office, as the secretariat to the high-level meeting, supported all aspects of its preparation and organization. Preparations included a highly participatory consultation process, which provided a basis for the high-level meeting's outcome document. The preparatory process included a global online consultation entitled "For a Disability Inclusive Development Agenda Towards 2015 and Beyond." This consultation was conducted in all UN official languages. 4 regional consultations held in Belgium, Brazil, Thailand, and Tunisia. Direct submission from member states, entities of the United Nations system, and civil society organizations, and other individual contributions received by the Secretariat, including responses to a series of questions formulated by our unit, working together with member states. And finally, summaries from 3 informal consultations on the high-level meeting on disability and development conducted at the United Nations headquarters. One thing that was very striking to us as we received and reviewed the many inputs from these processes in considering the key issues and questions and contributors through representing different sectors or interests, they demonstrated a high level of consensus in terms of what they thought needed to be done to achieve inclusive development. With the support of their inputs, member states negotiated an outcome document which was presented for adoption during the opening of the high-level meeting. The meeting itself consisted of an opening, 2 interactive roundtables, and the closing session. During the opening, statements were delivered by the President of the General Assembly, the Secretary General, the Chair of the Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, a representative of an NGO in consultative status with the Economic and Social Council, and an eminent person who was Mr. Stevie Wonder. Roundtable 1 focused on international and regional cooperation and partnerships for disability inclusive development, and it was chaired by Philippines and Finland. Roundtable 2 focused on post-2015 development agenda and inclusive development for persons with disabilities. It was co-chaired by Spain and Tunisia. During the closing session, summaries of the roundtable discussions were delivered by the co-chairs. The Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations emphasized the significance of the high-level meeting and its outcome document and called for concerted action by the international community for its implementation. In terms of participation, the high-level meeting on disability and development was attended by a great number of participants, including approximately 500 representatives from 200 civil society organizations and organizations of persons with disabilities. Approximately 120 member states were on the speakers list for the roundtables, of which 81 took the floor, and many of them were represented at the ministerial level. In addition to member states, representatives from the UN entities, 3 of them, 3 civil society organizations, and 1 private entity made statements. And this meeting resulted in a concise, action-oriented document adopted by member states at the highest level at its opening. The document represents the unified vision of countries from all regions of the world on the way forward for the realization of disability inclusive development towards 2015 and beyond. In particular, member states call for action in a number of critical areas, including education, health services, employment, social protection, accessibility, research, data and statistics, humanitarian emergencies, gender equality and the rights of the child, and international cooperation. Indeed, the high-level meeting on disability and development was the United Nations milestone. The outcome document is a framework document for action at all levels, international, regional, national, and local, to achieve a disability-inclusive post-2015 development agenda and beyond. This global commitment should not only remain in paper. It is critical that the outcome document be translated into real changes at national and local levels, including through both mainstreaming disability as a cross-cutting development issue, as well as by ensuring the full participation of persons with disabilities in all development processes. We must now all take action to make the goal of the outcome document inclusive, accessible, sustainable, and equitable development for all, a reality on the ground, everywhere in the world. DESA will continue to work closely with member states, civil society, in particular organizations of persons with disabilities, academic institutions, the private sector, both new and traditional stakeholders, to advance disability-inclusive development. We know that in order for us to transform society to be disability-inclusive, we need to continue strengthening multi-stakeholder partnerships. In other words, we need to work with the entire society to ensure that all development work is truly inclusive of all. The outcome documents request the Secretary General to report periodically to the General Assembly on its implementation. The reports of the Secretary General will be an important tool with which to sustain the momentum brought by the high-level meeting. They are also an opportunity to include information based on practical experience in implementing the outcome document at all levels. Therefore, we welcome your inputs based on your own experience in this regard. The ultimate goal of the international community is to enable persons with disabilities and their communities to become active beneficiaries of and participants in all aspects of society and development, and so that we can advance disability as a cross-cutting development issue, and we can mainstream disability in a post-2015 development agenda. We are looking forward to working with you, with all stakeholders, as we advance in this work. I would like to invite you to visit us online at www.un.org/disabilities, where you can read more about the work of the United Nations and provide information from your own activities to us. Thank you very much.